Hi guys, now continuing to our PC assemble. I'm gonna unbox this one. It's kind of hard. So be careful if you open this one because uh, processors are very sensitive. They have pins that very tiny. If you miss something, it will bend. So it will be much hard for you to install it in the board because it has a bend pins already, and you cannot go to the store and return it and replace it to another one, to new one, because they will void the warranty. So this is the Ryzen processor, Ryzen 5 34G 3400G. Before I will unpack this one, I will um, show you how to I will explain to you what to look at in the processor socket first. So the socket and the processor itself has pin 1 because there are hundreds of pins in here, in the processor itself. Here you can see it's like a hair strand, so many pins in it that will match on this one. So be careful because if it doesn't match, it will bend. So the idea is you have to match the pin 1 of the socket and the pin 1 of the processor. To do that, if you notice, every socket has an arrow in here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's an arrow in here that indicates that this is pin 1. So in every corner there is no arrow in it. Okay, so every motherboard with the processor socket, even an Intel has an LGA socket, which is the board. It's more sensitive because the board has the pins, not the processor. Unlike the AMD, the processor has the pins, but in Intel socket LGA, it's a pinless, not painless. It's a pinless. So the processor doesn't have a pin, unlike this one. Way back in Pentium models processors, they have pins, but after 2007 they modify the processors and remove the pins, and only the motherboard has the pins already. But the AMD doesn't change. In anyways, regardless of the model, every socket has a pin 1. So the arrow here, I don't think you can see it. There's an arrow in here. I think that way you can see it. There's an arrow that indicates pin 1. So you have to match the pin 1 of the processor. So in order to do that, in order to install the processor in it, you have to lift this lever upwards. So that lever will be left upwards and downwards. So now So you have to be more careful to this one. So installing the CPU, it's called ZIF. The method called ZIF. It's a zero insertion force, meaning you don't have to apply force just to install the processor. Okay, it will snap if you only match the arrow of the socket and the arrow of the pin 1 of the processor, then there's no effort to push down the processor. Remember that, because if it doesn't match, there's something wrong. So do not push the processor itself because it will bend the pins. So here we go. I'm gonna unpack this one. As you can see, there is a pin 1 arrow in this processor, unlike the other corners doesn't have. So now you know that this processor, this side has the pin 1 and the board is the pin 1 is in here. So you have to lift this lever up, and remember, this is ZIF method of installing, meaning zero insertion force. Okay, just to make sure just check every side unit if it's already flat, and then push down this lever down. Okay, that's pretty much it. We have successfully installed the Ryzen processor in this board. And then we have going to install the heatsink. Look at the heatsink, it's very nice. So ideally, since this is brand new, they put the silicone paste already in the heatsink, and if you manage to repair some CPU, you have to put a heatsink, the silicone paste in here, so that it will ensure the temperature or the heat transfer of the processor to the heatsink is effective. So the fan will prevent from the processor to overheat, because the processors will generate more heat every time they going to be used. Unfortunately, my heatsink doesn't compatible to the board because it's using a different connector here. So I think I'm going to remove this one and install it directly to the board. Mhm. Wrong move. It's a wrong move, guys. Sorry. Okay, guys. It's a different kind of socket. So uh, after you remove this one, you have to match all the slots of the screws of the back panel of this heatsink holder in here. This one, I'll show you after I manage to install it. Sorry, I have to pause the video just to press this one. But the idea is you have to, after you move this one, the other heatsink holder, you have to match these 4 screws, this one and the other side, with the back panel of that processor, this one. This is the screw nut here, so you have to match it in this heatsink screw. Make sure you have to make it tighten so that it will not loose, because if do loosen up, the processor will not transfer to this heatsink, and it will not, your processor will be damaged due to extreme heat. That's why they provide a heatsink. So don't too tight. Okay, so this is the fan cable. So since the fan is located in here, there are lots of fan connectors in this board. Some are chassis. Make sure you don't you correctly connected it